This guide covers the skills that got me to 10K MMR. 90% of my Dota games are in support role. After reaching 10K while mostly playing support, I decided to create a guide to help others. The concepts I'll be explaining are easier to implement in lower brackets because the games are inefficient and most of the people play reactively rather than playing proactively. To get good at your role, first of all, you need a hero pool. It's important to keep your hero pool limited to 4 to 5 heroes. The reason is, once you understand what your hero can and cannot do, at that point you start learning Dora. You will play 10 games with 3 heroes and improve more in comparison to playing 7 different heroes in 10 games, because at that point you're not just learning the game but the hero as well. If you focus on a few heroes, you will understand all matchups and you will perform better than others on that hero in your game. Once you have mastered the basics, learning new heroes will be much easier as your game sense will be at a higher level. When it comes to drafting your hero in a pub, supports are usually the first ones to pick their hero without having any information about what the enemy team is going to play. That's why picking a strong support hero that can give impact regardless of how hard the game is matters a lot. To learn about strong heroes, you can simply go to Dota 2 Pro Tracker and check out the heroes that are performing well in the current meta. Once you have picked up your hero, use the hero picking phase and strategy time to figure out the heroes you're going to lane against. Before going into the lane, most of the time we know the heroes we are going to lane against, so it is very important to plan according to your lane. Some important things that you need to think about are: what is my role in this matchup? Whether my lane is strong or weak? How should I play the lane? The answer to all your questions depends upon the type of support you're playing. First of all, you need to understand the nature of your hero. Every hero has a different role in the laning phase. You need to play your hero depending upon the strengths of it. To make it simple for you, I'll categorize them. Heroes like Undying, Enchantress, Trent, Pugna, Finch are lane dominating supports. These supports are really good at trading. Not only do they have good attack damage and speed to trade attacks, but also have spells that make it hard for others to trade in lane. With these heroes, you can play aggressively in lane and take early trades to build up advantage. Now, there are heroes that are not really good at dominating the lane on their own, but with the help of their position 1, they can be a real threat. These heroes are Crystal Maiden, Disruptor, Grimstroke, and Lion, etc. These heroes generally need to play a little safe in the lane. If these heroes try to fight the enemy heroes on their own, there's a high chance they will end up feeding. Their strength lies in good positioning and combination of their spells with their carry. After figuring out the type of support you're playing, you will have a better idea of how you should play the lane. In almost every game, there is a fight happening at first Bounty Runes, and the team that gets first blood starts with a huge advantage. The best way to play for Bounty Runes is to place both the initial observer wards in the area where your team wants to play for the Bounty Rune. Having vision of the rune sites will help you make better decisions about where you can fight for the rune with your team to get the number advantage. Smokes give extra movement speed, which will allow you to take better position before the enemy team even comes to the ward area. So it is advised to use smokes as soon as the game starts and start running to the area you want to ward and play around. As Radiant, some good warding spots would be this cliff. Or you can place a ward at mid on enemy's high ground. You will reach there before the enemy team because you will have additional movement speed from the smoke. If you want to take control of the bottom area, then you can either ward on this cliff with smoke or the bottom lane cliff right here. As Dire, if you want to take bottom side control, then you can place one ward on enemy's mid high ground and the other one either on this cliff or simply where the enemy team stands. And for the top side, you can wrap around the enemy from behind and place this ward on the secret shop cliff. Not placing the wards for the bounty runes and keeping them in your inventory is a huge mistake which often people make. Place the wards for bounty runes, get first blood and enjoy the first blood advantage. If any of your core gets the first blood, they will get their first small item in the laning stage, which is going to make the lane a lot easier for them. And in case the support gets the first blood, in that case you can call for mana HP regen items from base and spam your spells in the lane. This way you will always be out trading the enemy heroes in the lane and it will make the lane a lot easier. Most importantly, you will get level 2 before the enemy in the laning stage, which is another huge power spike for the lane. Remember, if you start strong, going into the mid game would be easier for you. Meanwhile, enemy team after losing early game would be clueless in the mid game. which will give you more advantage, and you can control all of this by doing a little effort of using smoke, placing ward, getting kills, and using the advantage properly in lane. If you actually want to improve your skills, my advice is to take a progressive approach. Avoid overwhelming yourself by trying to deal with every aspect of the guide at once. Take slow steps and focus on one aspect at a time. Once you're comfortable and confident in one aspect of your gameplay, you can easily go on to the next one. This guide is organized in a logical learning sequence, and I recommend following this pattern. For example, if you don't know how to play the lane properly, you won't be able to find opportunities for yourself to gank other lanes and to create pressure on the map, which in return will make the rest of the game worse. Remember, getting better in Dora is a gradual process that requires time, patience, and practice to improve your skills and develop your game sense. By following this guide slowly, you will be able to focus your efforts and make significant progress towards becoming a more skilled player. Before going into the lane, you need to identify which heroes are you going to lane against and which side has advantage. To do this, you need to evaluate your hero's strengths and weaknesses as well as those of enemy heroes. If you don't know whether your hero is strong enough to trade attacks with enemy support or not, you can simply get an idea by searching for your hero and comparing its stats with the enemy support you're going to lane against. For example, you're playing Crystal Maiden against Pugna. If you compare the stats of both heroes, you will see although both heroes have same attack damage, but Pugna has more armor and movement speed, which will give Pugna an edge when it will come to trading attacks. Other than that, Pugna has a 5-second cooldown spell, meanwhile Crystal Maiden's spell cooldown is 11 seconds, which means neither you have advantage in trading attacks nor trading with spells. So in such matchup, either you will play to the opposite side of the enemy support in lane, or you will play in the same side as them and trade your health with theirs, so your carry doesn't take that much damage. In this case, if you use your courier to get regen resources and keep your health higher than enemy, doesn't matter which side the lane favors, you will always have more impact because everybody aims for big items. If you invest in regen resources to be always active in lane, you will win the lane and that will make your mid game better. The main goal for any support initially is to win the lane, and in order to do that, there are few simple things that you need to keep in mind. First of all, if you're far away from the lane, just teleport to the lane and join your carry in the first wave, because leaving your carry alone to play the first wave will allow enemy heroes to have number advantage, and they can deny and harass your carry out of the lane, and from there onwards they will take the lead. Unblock the small camp preemptively so you're able to pull and bring the wave close to your tower, while denying creep experience if the lane gets pushed towards the enemy side. To have maximum impact as a support in the lane, use spells in lane to zone out the enemy heroes. Supports can literally solo carry the laning stage if they understand the importance of spamming their spells to keep the enemy's HP low. You don't necessarily have to go for a kill every time. Keeping the enemy's HP low helps your core to farm without pressure, and the enemy also struggles to take creeps. The two efficient ways to use your spells in the lane are: 1. You secure range creep with your spell as well as damage the enemy hero. And the second one, that your spell damages both the enemy heroes at once. Don't aim for big items initially as a support. Use your courier to bring Tango if you need health regen, Mango or Clarity if you need mana regen, and Sentries to keep the small camp unblocked. You shouldn't worry about pushing the lane while using your spells in the first 3 minutes of the laning stage, because forcing the enemy to play under their tower is going to help you secure Lotus, and getting level 2 before enemy also gives you huge power spike, because then you have two spells to use and enemy even in higher bracket don't actively think about it and end up feeding. Try to abuse this in your games and you will get a great value out of it. Mostly people try to harass enemy heroes, but they stand close to enemy creeps, which aggros creep onto them, and as a result, the balance of the lane is ruined as your creeps push out the enemy creep wave, while enemy creep wave is chasing you and you take so much damage from them. Make sure to keep your distance to avoid getting creep aggro while harassing the enemy. Creeps have an aggro distance of 500 units, so if you want to attack the enemy heroes, make sure to stay out of creep aggro range. You can also do the creep aggro cooldown trick, which is press attack command on enemy from outside creep aggro range or fog. That will put creep aggro to cooldown for 3 seconds. In that time, you can auto tag the enemy to harass him in lane without disturbing the balance of the lane, and the creeps will not aggro to you for 3 seconds. Usually, you can only land 1 or 2 attacks, but if you do it continuously in the lane, it is really helpful. Lotus is very important objective in the laning stage which is still being overlooked. Securing Lotus is really important in lane. Any kind of healing in lane changes the outcome of the lane. You need to plan at least 20-30 seconds before securing the Lotus. You can either push the lane towards the enemy side so it's easier for you and your core to get the Lotus, or you can start throwing your spells and zoning the enemy heroes out so they are unable to contest the Lotus. It is not worth dying for Lotus, but if you can secure it, it will help you dominate the lane, take better trades, and play aggressively. After securing Lotus, you can bring the wave close to your tower by pulling small camp. Always keep the small camp unblocked because it has multiple benefits. It allows you to pull creep wave and you can play safely around your tower. You can pull and deny the creep experience, which will give you lead in terms of experience in the lane. You can keep the wave close to your tower for your carry and rotate on map. If you want to pull more efficiently, then you need to know this information. If your wave is going in enemy's tower, don't pull the entire wave to the neutral camp. If you pull the entire wave, the enemy's creep wave will go into your tower and your tower will clear the creep wave, and then again lane's balance is gonna be ruined. If you single pull small camp, the creep wave will kill the small camp, and in the next wave you will have more creeps than the enemy, which will favor the enemies. Instead, just pull 2 or 3 creeps and see how it sets the equilibrium of the lane in your favor. Not only does it give you the ideal position of the wave, but also denies the experience of 2 creeps that you have pulled. If you pull around 24 or 25-second mark, you can have half of the wave pulled. Similarly, 54 or 55-second mark for the next wave. It is recommended to always keep the hard cam blocked if you don't understand how you can punish the creep pulling. If you're playing a lane dominating support and your lane is stronger than the enemy, in that case you should not block the hard cam, because every time the enemy pulls the hard cam, either you can stop it or farm it, and in case of your lane being pushed towards the enemy's tower, you can pull the hard camp yourself to bring the lane back to your tower. If you're strong in lane, then mirror the movement of their position 4. If he goes to the left side, you can also play on the left side of the lane. If he goes to the right side, you can also switch your position and harass both position 3 and 4. If you're playing against a hard lane, then you should play on the opposite side of their support and try to harass the position 3 only whenever you can. Although every player likes to have different starting items based on their preference, there are different variations that you can try in different scenarios. If you're playing a lane where the enemy will deal most of your damage by physical attacks, then you can try out this build. 2 sets of tangos, a circlet, 2 branches, blood grenade, and a sentry, and observer ward. In this build, you get +4 stats. You can also use smoke to place vision and try to get kills on bounty runes. I like Fairy Fight a lot as it gives instant 85 health, so I like to skip one branch and keep Fairy Fire as it helps me with baiting the enemies till the last hit. Use the sentry to unblock the small camp, and after getting gold from the bounty runes, you can get another sentry and mana items if you need them. Initially, you don't need a sentry to block the big camp because if you're playing on the left side of the lane, you can simply block the big camp by standing on it at spawn time. And later on, you can put a sentry to block it if the lane is hard and blocking the camp with body can put you in a bad position. If you're playing against a lane where enemy heroes are spellcasters, it's better to go for magic stick as you will keep getting stick charges to deal with HP and mana problems. In this build, I asked my other support to smoke us to bounty runes. Later on, you should focus more on getting healing and mana resources from base if you feel like you need them to stay active in lane. Remember, regen resources are really important in the laning phase as they not only help you outtrade the enemy but also help you survive the unfavorable matchups. There is another item which I have never seen on supports from lower bracket, but it is insanely valuable. Raindrop is actually a very strong early game item that you can buy even on supports as well. You're passively getting 0.8 mana regen and you survive the laning stage fights as well. Consider buying it against heroes that like to spam their spells. Every video takes a lot of effort and I want to keep helping you guys making Dota content. If you're enjoying the video, please make sure to subscribe and like the video as well as it helps with the YouTube algorithm. Understanding when you can leave your lane is very important because if not done correctly, you can ruin the early game not only for yourself but for your teammates as well. There are three scenarios when you can leave your lane. Number 1. You have a strong carry hero that doesn't need your help and can lane alone after some levels. Examples of such heroes are Void, Slark, Sven, etc. In some matchups, these heroes can stay in lane alone and doesn't need help from support. This is something you can do by communicating with your carry. Number 2. The wave is so close to your tower and there is an opportunity for you to use twin gates to gank the other side lane. As a position 5 support, you should always keep an eye on your off lane, and whenever you find enemy carry too far forward in the lane, try to stack pull the small camp and use twin gates to gank the enemy carry, and come back to your lane as soon as possible if your carry needs your help. Number 3. You have completely lost the lane, and if you further stay in lane, you will only feed. In that case, it's much better to lose one lane and help other lanes to win that for your team and force enemy to react to your moves. Leaving your lane should have a meaning. If your carry can lane alone, then around 5-minute mark when the siege creep spawns, you can go to the mid lane and pressure the mid lane tower. This has a huge impact on the outcome of the mid lane, and you can stay around mid till 6-minute power rune. And from there onwards, you can decide whether other lanes need your help or not. The main idea behind this play is that if your carry doesn't need your help, you can go to the mid lane with siege creep and try to damage tier 1 as much as possible and also secure power rune rather than standing in a lane with carry who doesn't even need you in the lane. If your carry cannot lane alone, then you have to stay in lane and only go for power rune. You should help your mid laner to secure every power rune starting from minute 6, as it not only helps your mid laner to scale well but also puts pressure on the enemy mid laner and enables your mid laner to move on map and help other side lanes as well and set up the pace of the game. Every time your hero is in base, whether you had to walk base because you had no HP or mana, or you just respawned, before teleporting back to your lane, look at your mid lane. If he needs a bottle refill, then teleport mid, refill his bottle and go back to your lane. This one TP bottle refill can boost the game of your mid laner by a big margin. Other than that, if the wave is under your tower and your off laner is not getting pressured, you don't have to TP back to the lane instantly because TP has a cooldown of 80 seconds. If you used it to get back into the lane when it wasn't even needed, then you won't be able to connect to the other lanes if a fight happens there. So before teleporting to your lane instantly, look at the other lanes and see if you can find yourself an opportunity to do something in other lanes. 70 to 80% of the games, your mid laner would want a bottle refill. Not only that, you might end up getting their mid laner killed too if he's out of position. Always be ready to take wisdom runes as they spawn because if the enemy steals it, it will not only make the game hard for you and the other support in your team, but also make the game easier for enemy support to scale well because of level advantage. If enemy support has a stun and he can steal wisdom rune from you, in that case, just ask for help from any of your core to join and help you with wisdom rune. If you're playing heroes like Lion, Rubik, CM that has an ability to stun the enemy or throw them away from their position, you should always get ready to steal the enemy's wisdom rune. Even if you die in return, it's worth it because overall you and your other support get more experience than the gold and experience opponent will get from killing you. And also, it will make the game hard for enemy supports as it will be really hard for them to hit level 6. Make this a priority because I have seen taking Wisdom Rune exactly at 7 minutes is not very common in lower brackets. You can abuse this in your games, steal enemies' wisdom, and have your level 6 before enemy supports. Smokes can be used for multiple things, but to put it simple, every time you smoke, there needs to be a reason behind it. Smokes are done to take map control. You can smoke with your team, kill an enemy hero, and convert that kill into an objective. The objectives are Roshan, Tower, map control either by killing the enemy hero or placing wards for vision. If you smoke and get a kill on a core hero but are not able to convert it into an objective, then the smoke is useless. But on the other hand, if you're smoking and killing any hero, whether it is support but converting that support kill into an objective, it means the smoke has served its purpose. Let's take this smoke play for an example. Three heroes from Dire smoked and got a kill on Dragon Knight at mid. But there is no creep wave or tower damage, and by the time next wave is going to come, Dragon Knight will respawn, but this kill enabled Dire to place a vision in enemy's jungle. So it is not so bad of a smoke, but if this vision wasn't placed, then this smoke would have been useless. The point is, Smoke should always give you some objective, and having vision on map is also an objective. Other than that, you can smoke behind your teammates while your carry is hitting high ground. Supports are most likely to be jumped first in a team fight. If you're smoked behind your core, the chances of enemy diving and finding you first is minimum. When you're smoked to look for a pick of a map, always keep an observer ward and place it where you want to take a fight, so your team can use vision advantage. If you smoke into enemy's area of map without vision, there are chances that you can get punished. Even if you have lost your early game, the main thing that makes a support player great is understanding how to take team fights properly. Target priority and positioning are the most important things in team fight. You need to have a plan and know your role before the fight starts. You need to understand a few things. What is my hero good at? And what stops my hero from doing what it likes to do? Let's take this shaman game for example. In order to understand your role, you have to see what your hero can do and how the enemy can potentially take a fight. Shaman likes to stay behind his team and provide disable from an area where enemy heroes cannot reach Shaman easily. But Shaman, not being careful about his positioning, walks in middle of a fight and ends up dying first, resulting in a team fight loss. What could have been a good fight for Radiant ended up on a bad trade because Shaman didn't play the fight correctly. What stops Shaman from not having a good position in this game is Venge and Wyvern, because Venge can swap Shaman into a bad position and Wyvern can always use Curse on Shaman. If you think about what stops your hero from doing things your hero likes to do, you'll be able to realize how to take a team fight. In this game, Shaman needs to deal with Venge and Wyvern and not reveal his position if Venge and Wyvern are not revealing theirs, and control them in team fights to make the fights easier for himself and team. You just need to have patience in teamfight and try not to die first. When you actively think about ways your hero can die in a team fight, it gets easier to avoid that situation. The starting ward should be placed for the bounty runes to get first blood. After that, before the night time around 4 minutes 30 seconds, you should place wards for enemies mid lane rotation. As Radiant, these spots would be good to avoid the ganks from the mid laner, and your mid laner will also be aware if the support from your lane walks towards the mid side. If you are in dire team, you can choose to ward any of these three places. There is a detailed video on when and which ward is important and where to place it. You can check it out from the link in the top right. After the laning stage, you have to play around the strongest core and try to make moves on map. But it really depends on the type of hero you're playing. If your team is playing aggressively, then as a support, it is good for you. You'll just follow them and take fights. If your team becomes defensive, in that case, there are two ways to play Dota. If your hero has spells that allows your hero to farm, then you can push side lanes, stack neutrals as much as you can, place vision for your team to set up for the next objective that could be towers or Roshan. Examples of such heroes would be Pugna, Nature's Prophet, Jakiro. But if your hero doesn't have spells that allow him to push side lanes easily, in that case, you can stack neutrals as much as you can, place vision for your team to set up for next objective that could be towers or Roshan, and play around your cores to break enemy smoke. Examples of such heroes would be Lich, Lion, Venge. While playing such heroes, be ready around your core so if they are jumped upon, you can be there to save them. If you're playing such heroes, you cannot go on pushing lanes on your own, and all you have to do is place vision and protect your cores. Understanding the limits of your hero is very important. If you pick a hero that is supposed to stick around core but start trying to push lanes with it, then you'll only be forcing yourself to do something that your hero is not great at, which is gonna affect your game negatively and you won't be using your hero for what it's good at. There's nothing wrong with farming your item as a support, but make sure you're doing it when your team is not fighting and your hero also has a potential to push side lanes. Heroes that can clear out the waves in mid to late game easily with their spells and don't have to show themselves in the lane for a long time are very annoying to play against. Keeping the lanes pushed towards the enemy's side is a very important move and is often overlooked. It provides information on map, forces the enemy to react to you and opens up the map for your team to farm and also splits the enemy team on map. Whether you're playing from a losing position or winning position, when there's nothing happening on map and you're clueless as well, at least you can rely on cutting waves from behind and pushing lanes to keep the pressure built on the enemy. Your items after the laning stage depends on what your hero needs against the enemy heroes and which item is going to help your hero reach its potential. The general strong support items are Pavis, Glimmer Cape, Force Staff, Solar Crest, Drums, Vlads. For heroes that like to initiate, prefer making a Blink Dagger. Now you need to decide which item you need in order to survive in the game. If the enemy has a lot of magic damage like Storm Spirit, Tekis, Kairat Mage, you can build a Glimmer into Force Staff. Passively, Glimmer gives 25% magic resistance, and if used on yourself or ally, it gives 40 movement speed and a barrier that absorbs 30 magic damage, which is insanely good to survive in team fights or help your cores out. Core Staff is the most important support item as it helps your core get out of bad positions as well as help you survive in case an enemy has jumped on you. For support, it is very important to stay alive in the fight and help their core from behind. If enemy has less magic damage but more physical damage, then you can build Pavis into Solar Crest as Solar Crest is one of the strongest support items currently. Now the question is, how do I know which item is suitable for the game? Well, as I mentioned earlier, that you need to have a hero pool and understand what your hero excels at. Once you have figured out that by playing games on that hero, you will understand which item helps your hero to scale into the game. If your hero doesn't need any item for himself, then you have to see the heroes you're up against and how your items can help your teammates. If you find yourself totally clueless, just try making drums and remember to use it in team fights as drums gives additional attack speed and movement speed to allies for 6 seconds upon usage. And the item is really strong for team fights and it's easier to make because of small components. The last and most important thing that I'll be covering in this guide is mentality. Most of the time, support players carry the early game and team fights. Stop thinking about mistakes that your teammates are making and focus on your game. The key to grind is to enjoy Dota, and you can enjoy Dota if you're performing better than everyone in the game, and that you can achieve by only focusing on your game. Don't frame or think about what your team is doing wrong, but focus on your game. If your approach is positive, you will improve. You can't win every lane or every game, but what you can do is play good and enjoy the game. Blaming others won't help them play better, instead, it will make the game worse. If you lose multiple games in a row, take a break. Most of the times, you're so tilted that you yourself are not playing to your full potential and you feel like you're doing everything right, but because you're so tilted, you're missing out on small details and you think your team isn't doing great. But in reality, it's you who is unable to see your own mistakes. If you're feeling upset about the last game, just do something else. Don't queue up for the next game. Taking a break is always helpful. If you're looking to improve your game understanding in any role, I offer private coaching sessions which can help you improve your skills and achieve higher rank, just as they have for my previous students. If you're interested, you can join my Discord linked in description. Please make sure to subscribe and like the video. Do let me know if you have any feedback, otherwise good luck with your games and have a nice day.